Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome to the first video of 2024, and you might have seen that I decided to shave for the first time, at least this short, since my wedding in 2015, so I guess I truly look like QuickyBaby once again, right? Not sure if I regret it. Let me know in the comments down below whether you prefer with the beard off or with the beard on. The great thing is if I leave it, it'll probably grow back, right? So if enough of you demand it, well, I'm not going to listen to you anyway, because it's my blooming body and I'm going to do what I want with it, right? Anyway, I digress. Let's focus on the first game for YouTube of 2024, and it's an absolute banger. Today we've got the pleasure of watching Vendor playing in the tier 10 British medium tank. One of two now in the game, although this is the one that you want to play, right? It is the Centurion Action 10. So the Centurion Action 10 is fantastic in pretty much every way since Wargaming buffed it. Although it does have some issues. Pretty horrible hull armor unless you're angling the side and baiting your opponents into to shooting at the tracks, finding out just how well angled you can see that the hull is all the way down the side there. So if you over angle it, lots of people think, oh, easy shot into the tracks and damage and mobilize the Centurion and also be able to take apart some of its hit points. But that just doesn't work against this vehicle. You are, of course, you'd have to really over angle the Centurion for that to be able to happen. Now, the upper hull armor is okay when you're using your gun depression, but really tragic when you're not. And I guess because this tank is so tall, its camo rating, it's not as bad as the concept. It's actually way better than the concept, but it's not great compared to a lot of the other tier 10s, and so it does struggle within that regard. Also, the turret armor on this vehicle, very nice if you're using it hull down, but as soon as you're not, oh, it's a horrible turret. And even when you are using your gun depression, the turret does have a problem against high explosive anti-tank rounds. And as we can see also that weak point on top, you can see the Vendor does what I do and has a look to say like, oh, how did that one go in? It's actually a good shot by the Tiger P right through the top. You can see Vendor's actually having a gander to see where the 430 shell went in. I think the 430 went in when they weren't angled and it went through the side. Or maybe it was the Tiger Mouse. Hard to tell with the caliber of the shells, but we could probably tell the order if we were to rewind. So go and do that if you want to. So Vendor is just absolutely crushing a location which you could argue is usually for heavies. But really, this position is just great for any vehicle that has a lot of gun depression. And with 10 degrees of gun depression on the Centurion Action 10, it's more than enough to wipe away those January blues, right? And I have to admit, if I'd done 5,000 damage in the first 3 minutes of the game, that would be one way to wipe away the January post-holiday blues, right, boys and girls? So, Vendor is taking the mother of all amount of ammunition in this vehicle, and that's because the Centurion Action 10 can actually carry 68 rounds. That is 26,000 potential damage. You could literally farm the entirety of the enemy team, if they let you, with the Centurion Action 10. However, Vendor is going through these heat rounds rather quickly. This is going to be an expensive ammo resupply, and I hope that we don't regret, or Vendor doesn't regret that later on in this replay, running out the heat when maybe things get a little bit tough later on. Oh, premonition, QuickyBaby. You know exactly what's going to happen. Maybe I'm just throwing in a few like blinds and a few detractions for all of you to try and distract you from what's going on right now, which is two incredible players having an incredible game. Interesting enough, Vendor's friend Fabi is still on all of their hit points. So maybe Vendor should just drop back and let Fabi get a few shots in. But when Vendor's on 7,400 damage, I don't think they really want to be dropping back too much. So since Wargaming buffed the Centurion Action 10, it really went from 0 to hero. Previously, this vehicle was lower mid of the pack, I'd say. Now it's probably one of the better ones, along with the UDES, the STB-1, and the CS63. Now, interestingly enough, of those four vehicles, the STB-1, the Centurion, and the UDES all have 10 or more degrees of gun depression and decent turrets. So it's interesting that the CS63 is actually the vehicle that has by far the best win ratio. But that is because the CS63 just has the speed to be able to get into position, and quite a few of the maps, like Mines for example, or Tundra, it's about who manages to take the hill first, or who manages to get the early position that ends up dominating the battle from there. Having just managed to 3-mark my CS63 last year, I think, it's a bit weird to say that, right? Yeah, it was last year, at least in theory, right? the CS63 for me is so fun. Still one of my, if not my most recommended medium tanks. Pretty much for all players, but I think it is one of the higher skill cap ones. So maybe, if you don't want to faff around with the CS63, or you don't want to have the distraction of having a hydropneumatic suspension on the STB1 or the UDES, the Centurion Action 10 is a real solid pick. Not just for the incredible players like Vender, but also for the more casual players who will still do very well in this tank. And I can't believe I'm actually recommending people go for a Centurion Action 10. It was years and years and years of the Centurion Action 10 being the vehicle that people get to, but I'm not sure if they really wanted to. But since the buff, is a great choice. So great shot there. We can see excellent gun handling for Vender here as they are using vertical stabilizers on this vehicle, in addition to the full firepower build of a gun, rammer, and vents. And the vert stabs on this tank, that minus 27% dispersion, reduces the dispersion of this vehicle when moving down to like nearly 0.06, which will be absolutely crazy on this vehicle. That's just kind of like T100 levels of gun handling. We can see that that combined with a decent aim time of 2.1 seconds means that Vender doesn't have to expose themselves for very long. They can get those clutch shots in and pull back without giving their opponents an opportunity to be able to shoot them. And with great marksmanship, Vender is now one shell away from 10,000 damage. Although Vender has just been firing gold this entire game, which now means that Vender only has 2 rounds of heat left. And they've got lots of heavily armored vehicles they're going to have to deal with. So it doesn't look like QuickyBaby was trying to distract you with that. I think Vender should have used a couple more APCR rounds against the FV, if only just to look after the heat rounds later on. And soon, the 330 millimeters of heat is going to go down to the 268 of APCR, which is going to struggle a lot more with trying to bludgeon its way through either very angled surfaces that are angled by more than 70 degrees, or alternatively against just the really thick plates, maybe on like a Tiger Mouse, or even on a T95 lower plate. But Vender, with 609 hit points left and on the cusp of 10,000 damage, it looks like Vender doesn't really doesn't shy away from jumping up on that ridgeline and getting an epic shot into the top of the Tier 9 American TD, finishing them off. Then pulling off a great kill on the Object 430. Vender is absolutely slamming it, but oh no, disaster. Vender, no. 10,000 damage in 8 minutes, Vender. You can't throw it away right here, right now. So Vender probably could load HE, maybe shoot at the top of the CC Mark II, but whether Vender's going to be able to do that or not remains to be seen. Are they going to elect to go for the HE shells, or are they going to try and hit the weak point on top? So interestingly, Vender actually switched out to HE, but they're going to switch back to APCR because they realize they can get a shot through the side before the CC Mark II reloads, and that was a great use of the intuition skill. Switching to try and splash in a hold down scenario, and then switching back when they realize the enemy's made a mistake. Okay, so unfortunately, Fabi on Vender's team, their platoon mate, has fallen, and now things are starting to look pretty bleak. It's a 3 versus 4 scenario, with Vender's team being down by 1,500 hit points, and Vender is going to go there and back again and show you exactly how you need to make your way along here. So what you want to do is always try and hit the water line there and wiggle left, right, left, right, left, right, and then you can easily be able to traverse along here. And that will mean that you don't get spotted, especially when you're spawning in the enemy team's location, advancing along there, and then sneaking up, and then usually catching all of the tanks that are camping behind this rock is a S-tier play. So, unfortunately, 3 becomes 1. And now, Vender is down by 2,500 hit points, with the Leopard prototype being smashed by the Grilla on the enemy team. With an FV215B183 in the shadows, a Concept 5, it looks like Vender needs to prove which is the better Tier 10 British medium tank. But, got to deal with the Grilla first. 356 damage is not a high roll, meaning that Vender's going to have to be able to get at least 2, if not 3 more shells into the Grilla. Is Vender going to do an intuition switch here for 484 hit points? Oh, beautiful. And it doesn't low roll either. That is the average damage of this vehicle, finishing off the Gorilla with the third shot after those bad low rolls with the first and the second shells in. Would have probably liked to see Vendor put in a couple of HE shells there, but then again, if they were trying to track the Gorilla and stop them from being able to crest the ridge, the APCR round would have been better probably for tracking in that scenario, because not only would it track, it would also do full damage, whereas the HE might not have been able to do that. Okay, so with the Gorilla shut down now, maybe the enemy team are going to have to start to play this a little bit more seriously. I guess the Gorilla was super confident, coming around the corner with 1,200 hit points, they'd be able to dispatch Vendor before they managed to pick up their top gun. But oh dear, this is where those 30 gold rounds, or was it even more gold rounds, that Vendor fired earlier would come in handy. But Vendor's just going to go for it, going to go for this lower plate, and I love it. Aggressive play against that lower plate. The Tiger Mouse crests the ridge, and that was not the play that the enemy team needed. Now Vendor up to 12,000 damage. Vendor blind fires in the bush, maybe because they thought that the concept would be there. But somebody enters the cap circle, and it's hard to predict exactly who it is. The concept was last spotted near the cap circle, but the FV215B183 has had more than enough time to be able to go anywhere on this map, while Vendor has been creating an absolute graveyard around them. So boy, Vendor secured the top gun, secured a mammoth damage game of over 12,000. That's half of the enemy's team worth of damage. But Vendor still has 2 more vehicles to deal with before they take down this game of World of Tanks. So Vendor fully aims the shot against the Concept. The Concept's terrible camera rating leaves them just sitting out in the open. And now Vendor has changed their 1 versus 4 into a 1 versus 1. So Vendor seems confident that the FV215B183 will still be in their base. But oh dear, with 6 cents going off, that FV has decided to come and take the fight to Vendor. I guess they should have probably done it a little bit earlier, right? Luckily for Vendor, this is just the dream scenario where the enemy all come at you one by one rather than coming at you at the same time. If they had, the enemy team would have undoubtedly been able to shut down Vendor, but they made a grave mistake. And now Vendor only has 1 more vehicle to deal with. Wow, great marksmanship, great mouse control there to find the shot on the top of the FV215B183, and nearly the second one following up. Again, where are those heat rounds from earlier? They would easily be able to go through the top of the FV215B183's turret, but these APCR rounds instead, not nearly so useful. Imagine what Vendor's thinking. Hopefully when they watch this video now will be, I should have just loaded full gold, right? Yeah, if you need to take more than 30 rounds of heat in a Centurion Action 10, boy, you have the mother of all carries going. And this is it. The FV215B183 making their way. Vendor finds a shot into the top of the vehicle, not needing heat there. Now with 2 shells that are needed more to deal with the FV215B183. They are slithering their way towards Vendor, who finds the shell into the lower plate, but now the FV215B183 has closed the distance. Vendor wants them to crest the ridge to put the shell into the lower plate, but the FV215B, as if they've just been woken up, like, oh, I don't have any hit points left, I guess I can't crest the ridgeline anymore and just feed myself to the Centurion Action 10. Oh, well, I'll just have to wait for them now. But by going on the back foot, that allows a predator of a player like Vendor to go after you. No idea why that FV didn't take the opportunity to crest, but the Centurion's excellent rate of fire with that gun rammer, with the vents, with the gun rammer directive as well. This is some god tier damage per minute on this vehicle. The siren goes off. 55 seconds left. Will Vendor get the Radley Walters medal, or is this going to be the most disgusting heartbreak of the year? Well, it would be the only heartbreak of the year so far. No, it's not! Vendor founds the shot, puts one in to the FV215B183, and Fabi on their team, their platoon mate, says, well played. Is that all? Is that all you're gonna say, Fabi, for this 12,000 damage game in a Centurion Action 10, where Vendor destroyed over half of the enemy team and fed you a gigantic victory? Well played? Well, don't worry, because Fabi, I'll do all the hyping for Vendor. This was an incredible game showing you exactly what the Centurion Action 10 is about. Amazing firepower, amazing hold down capacity, and while it doesn't have quite as much gun depression as something like a UDES or an SDB1, the finesse that you can get on the Centurion Action 10 makes those 2 guns look wild and flappy in comparison. I love the way the Vendor worked that ridgeline relentlessly and then just kept cool and calm under pressure and dealt with. Luckily, the opponents one by one. So Vendor gets the Radley Walters medal for the 8 kills here. Over 13,000 damage dealt. I said 12. I don't know what I'm talking about. Nets Vendor the high caliber, but they spent 208,000 credits on ammunition. That might be one of the most expensive resupplies I have ever seen. In fact, if you were to load full gold in an FV4005 and fire all 20 rounds of ammunition, that would only be 160,000. This is 25% more than that. That is a lot of credit spent. But when you're smashing 13,000 damage, do you even care? I very much doubt it, as Vendor crushes one of the games of the year. And just 200 damage shy of the highest damage game of all time in the Centurion Action 10, which I uploaded on my channel last year by QuickyBaby. So, Vendor, congratulations to you on this mammoth game of World of Tanks, and thank you so much for uploading it on the What Replays website for the whole community to bask in your glory. I really enjoyed this one. I knew I wanted to commentate on it, and I hope everyone watching on YouTube enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it goes live on Tuesday, I am going live all day on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby for the first stream of 2024. And I've got new drop tokens so you can get some fat loot at the same time. So really looking forward to seeing you all live on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby to see whether the matchmaker in 2024 is going to be the best year ever. Yeah, maybe not. And all that's left is to wish all of you a very happy new year. Good luck in 2024, whatever you're doing. Is it IRL? Is it video gaming? Whatever it is, I hope you smash it. It's going to be your best year yet. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.